today we are here with Dr. Scott Young, and Scott Stone wanted to say something in regards to Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, Scott Young, the destroyer of dreams, is here. So if you were in a good mood before you started this video, we're sorry. But welcome, Scott. How are you?
All right. You know, my wife and I have gotten into dream interpretation, and she will love that. When she watches this, she's going to be like, "Oh God, that's just going to be great."
Good.
Holy cow.
He brings some insight. You know, Patriot Underground reached out and sent us Dr. Young's info. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. And then we're going through the conversation, and he doesn't have the same perspective in some ways as we do on XRP. And I'm like, you know, Scott, I'm like, this is us really being true to that. You know, sometimes we will interview people that have a different perspective on things than we do. And that's what this is all about. So we're
make
figuring
a point
this out.
of doing that. We really do. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to just present one side of anything.
Yeah, because
So-
we don't know exactly what
Yeah.
the heck's going on. So anyway, hopefully that intro, I don't know what that did for you.
I love it. I think it's great.
So
well, with that, yeah, let's,
where do we
destroy
start?
some dreams.
Yeah, let's destroy some dreams. Where do we start with that, Dr. Young? You're going to make everyone feel old after
I guess
that.
we're going to start off with XRP and your opinion.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, here we
Well,
go.
I mean, I was talking to one of my administrators on my Telegram channel today, and I have more of, you know, my background is when I was learning about. I mean, I was learning about Nesara without knowing I was learning about Nesara. I mean, you know, you guys would call him white hat. I called him my anti-cabal guy, you know, because he was talking about, he wouldn't tell me that it was the anti-cabal forever. And I always say, you know, I mean, he would talk to me about these guys that were like, you know, connected to the Philippines and Chinese families. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Who are these guys? And they were connected to these people with that, you know, like one phone call away from Trump. And I'm like, so what? You know, I mean, this is back in 2010. I'm like, I don't care. I mean, you know, isn't that the guy that, you know, is on TV and he, you know, you're fired? And I didn't care. I you know, I mean, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, and he was, you know, again, he was talking on different ways. And there's a book, actually, there's a book on blockchain that he made me read. And I, you know, when I read things, and I talk about this a lot, when I read things and I study issues, I don't just you know, read something. When I study something, I will make notes, and then I will go off a cliff on things. Like, I go so deep, and then people go like, "Oh my God, you're killing me." And like when I study my end time stuff, or I study apologetics for the Bible on things, I go so deep. Like people go, "Oh, you're killing me." And so like I was like, you know, 10 chapters in, and he was like, I just wanted to be 5 chapters in. And when I was studying that, you know, this book on Bitcoin, because this is way before Bitcoin had just barely come out,
Right.
and realizing that we're talking about blockchain issues, and what he was talking about is that about 2008, there's this, you know, the cryptos were just barely coming out, and there's a pathway because the anti-cabal families have been trying to get the Nesara funds in, and I know you guys have talked a little bit about Nesara, but trying to get the Nesara funds into America and to the world to kind of release this gold-backed currency, and release the debt from, you know, the slavery stuff for generations. And they've been trying it for a long time. I don't know if you guys know this, but do you know that there are families and there are people that have been talking about this in the 70s,
Oh yeah.
in the 80s, and since, you know, 9/11, and it's because what they've been trying to use is the systems of the world, and the Fed and the fiat systems have always blocked it. And what I realized is that when we were talking about the blockchain and the Bitcoin stuff, those things were a divergent point. And that blockchain kind of point was that divergent point. And that's where the QFS actually comes from, is that blockchain point. And they were creating that kind of divergent point of how do we actually create a stream of way of creating a type of money source that we could utilize to kind of open up the world. And I had no idea what I was reading about, and it was like in 2011. I'm like, I'm just reading about it, just trying to understand it, and no idea that it was going to be the QFS.
Yeah, as I understand it, the Nesara was drafted in what 1974 or 76.
Might have been even earlier.
Well, it's in the 80s. It was in the 80s because
farmers.
What they were trying to do is that basically the contract law. What happened is the Farm Bureau came in and they would take over someone's land, and so the guy would die, and then the son would go, hey, listen, I want to take over my dad's farm. And they had written in the contract that it was given over to the government, to the Fed, in essence, and to the Farm Bureau. And so they were going, this is wrong. And it was through contract law. So this is why I keep coming back to contract law. Contract law is one of the oldest points that has been violated. And that's why most people don't spend any time in contract law. Contract law is between, so if Joe and Scott, and I just want your viewers just to look at Joe and Scott for a second. If you guys are two like-minded people, at least, and you guys come up with a contract on a particular situation, and the judge has to get in between the two of you, they're going to say, is this at least a legal contract? There's not child trafficking in the middle of it. There's not anything crazy. It's a makes sense, it's written down, kind of thing. And did you fulfill, the agreement overall? Well, that's kind of the way that happens. What Nesara actually showed is that the government overstepped the boundaries over and again. And what happened is that instead of them having to pay back, instead of the government actually having to pay back, what happened is the son or the daughter, the next generation, got the land for free, got everything. They didn't have to pay back the loan. They didn't have to do anything. This is the initialization of the debt forgiveness kind of idea. So this is where the concept of that, and it's all because of contract law. And so it's a violation of contract law, but it also takes an understanding of the Constitution and contract law. So this is where the idea kind of spurred. And so they kind of realized, wait a second, this is something that we could utilize, because when Trump kind of came on the scene, and other people like Russell J. Gould, who realized, that we could, we saw some things, the writing and the language, that we could find ways of tripping up the idiots in here, when they started to see that this whole systems that they had created to defraud all of us. That's the contract statements that are out there. And so that then what we found is that everything had to be done legally. And we're dealing with that right now, by the way. Trump is being arrested in an indictment issue with these boxes, right? So these presidential boxes. And see, the left is sitting over there and for these presidential boxes. And every time they do this, and by the way, this is related to Nesara. You guys don't realize these are related. Every time they do something, it opens the Pandora's box up. It is the boomerang effect. And I you don't realize it opens up the boomerang effect for every single living president and dead president. And what it does is it says, or vice president in that way, and says that we're going to cancel every single thing that you actually did.
You
And
know,
so,
I want to
go ahead.
inject one little thing here.
Okay,
Is
good point.
the idea that the debt jubilee, which is effectively, I think, a big part of Nesara, as I understand it, was a common practice with the Hebrews back in the day. I believe it was. I think it was a 50-year or 100-year interval, and it was something just to well, to make the economy healthy.
Well, it was actually done every 7 years, but it was done every 50 years only because, in that way. But really, it was because the king would own everything, and after 7 years, and it was like, they were either dying or, he had to forgive everything because they were dying. So, it was like, okay, I could let him die. I owned everything anyway. And it was like, well, okay, you're all forgiven, oh, thank you. We're, because they can't actually pay for it. And guess what? We're right there right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I put a video out just last night, and people are buying these cars and trucks. That people are buying a truck right now for $100,000. They're buying it for $100,000 because they propped up the value of that truck. They can walk away from that truck in 6 months. Let's say they've had it for 6 months, and the truck isn't even worth $70,000. So they're underwater by $30,000. They just walk away from the truck. What does it matter? I mean, so you're talking about a level of like, what does it matter? I mean, what does it matter in 2008? What did it matter if you walked away from your house? If you're massively underwater in that, and you can't pay for it anyway.
Well, the dollar, as I understand it, is essentially worthless. I mean, we went off the gold standard in 1971. Fiat currencies, on a good day, will last 200 years, maybe. They all fail. They always have failed. We knew this was coming.
Right.
But
We've known it. Actually, 2020 was that time frame.
My parents built a beautiful house for $54,000 in 1971. That same house today is approaching $1 million. It's the same house.
Right.
Well, I mean, it was actually worth a lot more then, I think, than now in terms of, yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that happens. I mean, these debt systems have to actually wash out. And this is what most people don't realize. They have to wash out. When we move into the gold-backed currency, we actually have to. And this is why a lot of truthers are not seeing. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of truthers who say, Nesara is a lie, that, Nesara is this way. You don't understand. If Trump came back tomorrow, okay, and I always say, listen, if Trump came back tomorrow or Trump comes back in January of 2025, if you believe in that, as if that 2020 doesn't occur and 2022, don't you think that they'll steal another election? Of course they would. Okay. So it's ridiculous to deal with this. And by the way, Nesara actually talks about elections. The whole thing, it's a huge portion of dealing with all of this stuff. It talks about term limits. It talks about a lot of this stuff. We're not just talking about money. It's a whole level of this kind of information. But if Trump, an economist, that's what I keep telling people all the time, the master economist, if he knew that this thing he was screwed and there was no way to do this, 5 minutes after he lost that election, he would have said, military, let's just get it going. Let's get busy. And because, we would be screwed. There's no way to take it back, because if he walked back into here, we've got massive inflation. There's no way to recover everything. Why would he be walking off an airplane in North Carolina, and he walks off and he's like doing this little dancey thing? Why would an economist act that way? If Nesara, and we have numbers of truthers and I just saw a guy, and a guy I really respect, Monkey Works. I mean, I love him, but he's lost his faith in this thing. And I love him. I'm not trying to beat him up here, but he's lost his faith. And I'm like going, if he really these people, if they haven't believed in this stuff, the military really is in control. We have to see this, and Nesara is the basis of this whole thing.
Well, Derek Johnson does a really good job of laying that out. If you're familiar with his work, I mean, I often have to remind myself of Derek Johnson's work just to get through the day because you know, it's, I mean, the world is on fire. It's literally on fire. It's crazy.
Right. And it's coming. And by the way, he and I are talking on Friday here that we're going to have that same conversation this coming Friday, and that same kind of stuff. And he and I talk, you know, when we talk, it's a really powerful, intense conversation because I know the Nesara part, but it closely ties into this. I mean, there's so much involved. You know that the financial people are sitting right beside the military people.
I believe that.
And there's so much involved in that too.
So. Well, on this topic, you know, we were down in Anaheim for the Truth Tour in October, and Russell J. Gold and Derek Johnson, they had some differences. And the fact that you've brought, because I was going to bring something up, the Russell J. Gold piece of this, and we have a lot of people in our comments that talk about him. So what do you feel? I mean, obviously you're going to be talking with Derek. He brings stuff that we full-heartedly believe to the table. If Russell J. Gold is in fact the inventor of the QFS, how do you see his work being implemented? But he doesn't. It sounds like, unless he's playing stupid, that he doesn't really believe that what Derek Johnson's talking about to be true. So can you bring together these two different philosophies?
I mean, here's what I would say. Russell J. Gould, I want you to realize too, is that Russell J. Gould is an immensely smart guy. Okay,
absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
But Russell J. Gould has got like blinders on the grammatic points of the contract law.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And please don't you know don't get too sideways with that. Okay. And don't like try to make him come over here and deal with Derek on that one point, okay? Because Derek is dealing with the military codes of justice, and so then then we have Wano Saban, who's spending his time on the Brunson case and the election stuff, okay? And then we get really upset when we have all these different people who don't deal with the Nesara stuff. And Scott's over here talking about the Nesara stuff. And so if you want me to answer the Brunson case, I'm not going to really answer that.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? And if you want me to answer like the exact actual the statements that all the details that inside the contract law points of Russell J. Gould, I really am not going to be able to do it. Now, I've studied a lot of Russell J. Gould, but he didn't actually create the quantum financial system. He created the grammar that helped us understand the legal points of this. Okay. Then we had the understandings that we have of the quantum financial systems that we were trying to do of the blockchain points. So he's like the legal points of this, and then we have over on the other side of the fence, we have the David Straight, who comes into the legal status of this point here, okay? So who connects the Russell J. Gould to the legal points there, okay? And again, David Straight doesn't fully, and he likes the QFS points there, but he doesn't always agree with some of the things in here too. And so again, I always kind of say, stay in your lane, okay? Like horse racing, right? Stay in your lane. Don't kind of run off in the different lanes. And so that's what people need to kind of keep doing, is just stay in your lane. And so that's what you want me to do as well, in that way too.
Russell has taken credit for
creating the QFS.
Creating the QFS.
Yeah, I would disagree. I mean, if he's really created the QFS, has he created the financial genius points of the QFS? Has he? Has he written the blockchain code of that point? I don't know. I would disagree. I mean, I think has he created the quantum financial system? You know, the QSI points of that area, the monetary system of it.
Right.
Sure about that?
No,
Right, well,
not at all.
I mean, the fact that you're answering the way you are,
Yeah.
it's in line with, because we don't want to take away from his brilliance. I mean, nobody can, but it just
he's a
something's
great
not
guy.
adding up.
Yeah, he's a great. We're not speaking poorly of him at all.
I love him. I don't. He's foundational and works to that. Okay, but we have to also say, listen. Sorry, I'm taking some off the screen here. Listen, what he's done is foundational and work, and we need to build upon the work that he's done. And David Straight has built upon some of that work with that too. And you know, so that's the kind of thing. That's the thought leaders. Those are going to be the thought leaders of the future. You know, with that kind of thing too.
Got it. Well, so let's go into your take on XRP, and that you've stated you don't believe it is a currency, but where do you see it playing?
Well, it is a currency today. So,
Okay,
see,
right.
that's the point that happens. Okay, so fiat is, you know, a nothing system, right? So fiat is like when we say like the dollar is you know, all of the systems I'm sorry, of the world are fiat. So they're based upon nothing.
Yeah.
You know, the economy, it's based upon trust in the system. That's what those are. And what the cryptos are, all the cryptos, whether they're Ethereum or anything else, they're all a type of currency. So they're based upon the trusts in the system. So when you have XRP or Ethereum or Binance, is that right? Did I say that correct?
Yeah, Binance
Okay.
is a platform.
It's an
Yeah,
exchange.
or Bitcoin. They're all based upon how much you believe inside the system. That qualifies them as a currency at this point in time.
At this point in time.
I would argue that XRP stands out in its utility. It is
Correct.
a utility, therefore not a security. You know, a security is just, you know, you're betting on future performance of the instrument.
Correct.
That's not what XRP represents at all. It is the technology. It is the utility itself.
And it is a wonderful utility. And then people got to say to me, well, they're ISO 222. And I'm like, I could name off a billion things that are ISO 222. I mean, you know, it's like some old standards that we would talk about in other ways. There's a ton of things that are ISO, you know, standard. Okay. So that, I mean, that doesn't mean that they're 100% like the best thing in the world. Okay. I mean, I could talk about my own standards in my field of audiology, and you go, just because I wowed you with a couple words doesn't mean that has a 100% meaning that I'm credible. Does that make sense? And so, you know, there's a lot of things now. XRP and XLM and blah blah blah. You know, they have some capabilities, but here's what the key element of Nesara has. So on one side of this, first off, what you have to see is that 2020 was always identified as the date that, or the time frame when the fiat was going to die. This is really important. We knew, all sides knew that 2020 was going to die. So we had to come up with an answer in 2020 because the death systems were going to come to an end. So the other side of the systems came up with the Great Reset. Okay. So the Great Reset was just another fiat system. Okay. In years past, in systems past, what would happen is 1913 came up with 1933, which is actually the very first time frame of a switch system where we really were off the gold standard. That actually was, it starts in 1929 of the stock market crash, and it ends when we get off the full gold standard. Then we come up to 1971, where the rest of the world starts on a gold, it comes off of the gold standard fully, but America was already off. Okay. It ends in 1974, and that's around the same time frame we're coming off of out of Vietnam. But we start on this on the oil, that we have the oil crisis. Well, by the way, that's why we have the OPEC, issues, and we come on to the oil standard for the gold, or sorry, for the fiat, right?
Yeah,
so we have that nature that comes in, and then we come up to 99, which comes in to the time frame that we have that Russell J. Gould. Okay, so we know that 2000 comes in, and that's why we have the Y2K and the weird stuff that happens around that time frame, and we end up with 9/11, which was another false flag event. And because we know that's another bankruptcy, these are bankruptcy phases that always happen in fiat systems. Because when you're using your credit cards, you're going to come up to a bankruptcy system. This is what happens in fiats. Okay. So they're always 20 to 30 year spans. So 2020 has always been known as an ending point. And that's why Trump was brought on. Why was an economist brought on? Because you had to have an economist to lead us into the next level of this. Okay.
Right.
So this is why 2016 he was brought on to lead us into a Nesara. So we needed the world to kind of get on this kind of thing. And so to bring the other militaries together to kind of say, we're going to get everyone together. Let's all get together and sing Kumbaya together so that we can kind of get this thing going, right? And this is the systems. So now we brought up together into 2020. And so we have now the Great Reset is this issue of just the flip over. So what does the Great Reset actually means? It just says, if the Great Reset was going to happen, what it would be is a flip. We would have gone to the Georgia Guidestones kind of thing, 500 million people left. We would have had Hillary Clinton in 2016. We would have had a nuclear war in starting with the destruction of Seattle. We would have had, and we would have had America knocked to his knees. We would have had all kinds of different things that, frankly, were anti-biblical. This is one of the reasons why God actually stopped it all. Okay, because it messed up a biblical time frame. Because the Bible is going to find its way, and God's going to go, no, you ain't going to do it that way. This is my other kind of way of that circumstance. Now, if they were going to do this, and they would have had a code system, which is a type of mark of the beast, and the whole system, they would have done it. It was a hijack. Okay. Well, how do you stop a hijacking when they had the whole system actually do it? You kill it before it ever gets out of the systems. So you stop it before you do it. So they game theoried this thing way before this ever started. And see, everyone's before Great Reset could ever get going, they actually killed it. So, and I hate to use this in a gross way, but I got to use some of the gross wording. They aborted the baby. Yeah. I'm sorry. They really did.
Okay. That helps give clarity.
It's another way of using that term. What
are Klaus and his boys doing right now? Are they just actors at this point? I mean,
they're by the time you heard Klaus and those boys, this thing was dead.
Good.
I know you're going, you got to be kidding me. No, that is how beautiful the strategy is.
Yeah.
And
makes sense, actually.
Isn't it fascinating?
It is.
And when you realize, but see there are, I'm going to give you this one. This will mess your brain up.
That's fine. Go ahead.
It's already messed up.
Okay. Do you know that in 6 different parts in the New Testament, he says before the foundation of the earth. Now, from a biblical standpoint, that means before anything ever happened, and he's basically going, I've already fixed everything before anything ever happened. Because God's actually going, don't worry, I already figured it out before everything ever happened. And this is what?
Linear time is not real. Yeah.
That makes you're like, oh, because he's actually seeing everything happen before it ever occurred. Okay. But it's a longer conversation. What happens is that in true game theory, you actually set your opponent up before they start the game. So like as they're putting their chess pieces down, you've already made it so that they're not going to win. And if you actually watch really kind of cool spy movies and stuff like that, you guys ever watch those? And you watch these really cool spy movies, and you actually see and then they go backward in time, and they go backward, and you're seeing like days or weeks or months behind, and then you go backward and you go, no way, that actually happened beforehand. And then by the time the guy shows up at the meeting, they already lost. That is what's happened with the Great Reset.
Nice.
So you've seen Rabbit Hole then with Kiefer Sutherland?
Oh yeah, I mean, all that kind of stuff has occurred.
I love that show.
All that kind of stuff has occurred, and that's what's happened to the Great Reset. The only thing left is the Nesara peace.
Yeah.
Now, there's a military event that we have to deal with. This is a war. This is the military event. So the Nesara peace is just playing out. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that happens. Okay, so let's get backward over to and we're just unhooking. We're ripping off the Band-Aid layers of the stuff. So to answer your piece here, so I know we're trying to keep the time frame. So I'm kind of talking a little differently than some people talk like. I hope you don't mind on this stuff too.
Oh no, I'm enjoying the hell out of this. This is great.
But here's one of the things that happens is that when you rip away fiat currencies, the Constitution clearly stipulates that money must be made by Congress under the auspices of the Treasury system. And the only way that it can be really done so that it's not done by an evil elite group is that you have a rotating for the people and by the people, which means that you've got to have you can't have a group of people who are always in there for 47 years kind of thing, right?
The Federal Reserve.
Right. And so you can't have power structures of people. And so you got to rip away all the power structures, right? So, and that's the whole point of what the military is trying to do, right? Rip away all the power structures of that systems. So if you're ripping away the power structures, which is not just the Federal Reserve, it's the CIA, it's all the 3-letter agency points, okay? When you see all that stuff and you rip away the election issues, which is a super strong piece of the Nesara stuff. It's so important, it's not even funny. Because I don't care if you put in a gold-backed currency, if you don't have a renewing source of new people coming in to Congress and Senate and presidency and mayorships and governors, they'll just reboot the Great Reset. This is the key. And so you've got to take out the power struggles of those kinds of things. It makes a republic messy, but it keeps it clean. And this is the nature of that thing, okay? And those idiots hate it, but that's what makes it clean, and that's what makes it really clean, even though it's messy in that way too. So what happens is that the key evil that we've all identified is that we hate cabal, who is making our money, right? So why would I replace a cabal who makes the fiat through the Fed with XRP, who would then be the money source? The answer is no. I'm telling you right now, they cannot be a currency.
But I don't see its role as a currency. I see its role as the like, if you're gonna go to the store, if you're gonna go to a destination, you get in the car, you go there, and the car is the vehicle. This is the vehicle. It's not. It's not. I mean, it's not the currency per se. The value isn't inherent in the instrument. It's just the instrument is what animates the value.
And that's exactly how I would like it to be. See, what most people are telling you is that XLM is silver backed and XRP is gold backed. And yet, if they're gold backed, that makes it a currency.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Technology. I mean, I've always been a little soft on that whole, because then you have like a 1-for-1, then it has a value. It's
It has it, but who would back it? I mean, how would you have a backing with an XRP? So who would actually hold the value? The government would have to hold the gold value. I mean, because who would keep the value? So I always kind of say, we always talk about the chicken and the egg, right? So you have to go backward. You have to go backward into the systems. Who keeps the vault? Who would hold the value for XRP? If you're talking about, make up something. Joe has 10,000 XRP. I'm just making up numbers, okay, on a 1-to-1 basis. And Scott has 100,000 XRP. Therefore, dude, I know, what a jerk. But that means that Joe has $100,000 more than Scott, or 100. I mean, that much more. And so what you're saying is that but we have to have that much more in gold backing that up. Well, that means that it's under private ownership in that circumstance, and that means that someone's holding that particular thing. That means it's held by a private company and backed by a private company. And I'm going, hold on, that's exactly what we're trying to get away from. The quantum financial system has to be decentralized, and that's the key element that we're looking for. Okay, so we have to decouple everything from the Fed. The quantum financial system will be mine, will be Joe, Scott, Billy, Jeannie, will be, each person has their own quantum financial system. It's just an identifier for that. It's not going to be Mark of the Beast. It's not going to be any of that stuff. It's just going to be an identifier, just like a social security number. Okay. It just has all of my information that I can go and access it and go grab it. Okay. XRP could easily be the bump. Now, let me give you an example of what XRP could do. So let's say my checking account, okay? If I choose to write a check to Joe, the connector, now on checking account, they actually have a routing number and a checking account number, okay? Now, what's really frustrating that most people do not know is that the routing number actually is a direct connection to the Fed. And the IRS will tell you that, oh, we don't watch you on this stuff. And then they said, well, we're going to only watch transactions over $600. And by the way, if you do a deposit, now this is as a private business owner, okay? If you do deposits over $10,000, it identifies the DEA that you will actually trigger DEA. Wait a second. I made a deposit over $10,000, a private deposit over $10,000 from my business to the bank, a private deposit. And how did it trigger the DEA? Because of the routing number.
Okay. I didn't know that.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
How did it do that? It has to trigger, boop, and pops up into the trigger point that way. This has always been, it could be $5. It could be a trigger point. It has always been the connector point. So I want you to think about this. It's a trigger point to the Fed. It always has been that way. So this is the connector. Now, if we kill off the Fed, which is the whole point, and by the way, Q talks about this, and I do not remember the Q drop. It says in very bold lettering, it says Q will destroy the Fed, or
Yeah.
gold will destroy the Fed. Sorry.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Gold,
remember this.
Gold will destroy the Fed.
Yeah.
This is a Q, CUE, a Q of statement of it's going to cut the ties when we see the quantum financial system fully online. What will happen? You will see the Fed cut. The ties will cut. Now, if Joe decides he just will not get on the fully on the QFS, and he keeps wanting to write a check, how do we like let him write checks? Or like my dad's 84 years old and he wants to keep writing checks. What do we do with him? We let him write checks. But he how does he do, what does he do with that? I mean, because bank A doesn't know how to talk to bank B. I mean, because they don't have any connector anymore because the Fed was the connector between them. XRP. And I didn't understand this. I fought against it for a very, very long time, the XRP thing.
Really?
I did. I hated it. I thought it was stupid. And then I realized, oh, there's the connector. Here's what happened. I had to learn this. XRP is all it is railroad tracks.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a gorgeous railroad track between, it's railroad tracks all over the place. Okay. So it's railroad tracks between the banks. So here's what happens. And I have no problems with you guys owning 1 billion ounces of whatever you want to say, 1 billion shares of XRP and it going to the moon. You know, you hear people talk about XRP going to the moon because guess what happens? So my dad wants to write $100 check every month, whatever, to X whoever, and he wants to write that check and he wants to keep writing checks. Fine. And he will write a check. So guess what? Bank A has to pay a fee to Bank B, and he has to pay an XRP. That there has to be and maybe he has to pay a fee. I don't know if he has to pay a fee or the bank has to pay a fee, or there's a 5-cent fee. Well, guess what? That's fine. How about central banks? The Central Bank of Iraq paying a fee to Spain for a transfer mechanism, because every nation will still have their own currency. So Iraq paying, well, let me do it easier for Scott. Iraq with their dinar talking to Venezuela with their bolivar. Okay. So that they're trying to, let's say that they do a lot of interaction, or Iraq with their bolivar, which has a huge amount of work with Venezuela or Vietnam. They have a huge connection between the two of them. So what do we do with that? Well, we have XLM. And so they would have the bridge between the two of them. So they want to work with them. Well, how do we actually bridge them? We really don't want to utilize XRP. They probably would utilize an XLM kind of mechanism, because those are better bridges between cross-country banks or cross-country locations, because now you're also talking about, over distances in different ways. Now, what we're going to see as those currencies rise up to a gorgeous level and be 1-to-1 ratio points. And so that's how I have no problems with people making tons of money off of XRP and XLM, because now they're privatized.
So what would drive XRP to go up to, as they're saying? One of our friends sent us a Twitter post, and I think I have it right here to pull up, that it could be close to $513,000 for an XRP pop.
Because here's what happens. I mean, there's going to be millions and billions of transactions that are still done by credit cards and checks. Does that make sense? They're still utilizing the old systems of transactions. But here's what happens. Yeah, sovereign souls.
Yeah, that's our friend Brad. But what it's getting at is this white paper comprehensive approach to determine the fair market value. Anyway, I'll put that link below. But that's where we first heard about it, from our friend Brad. So,
and again, it will take time for those kinds of things. But the QFS. But here's what's gonna happen. Now, there is going to be a physical and a digital currency for every single country, because I promise you, what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like really upset about digital currency. They're going to go, I want to have the physical currency. Now, it's going to be tied directly to a gold-backed currency. For America, we're just going to use America for just a second, okay? And 5 seconds after the Treasury sets it to, gold, and I'm making up a number, so don't quote me on this one. It'll be, and because, by the way, it's always happened in the history of gold-backed currency, it sets it to it, okay? And 5 seconds after you see it, it will set to $5,000. Make up a number, okay? And some people go, well, as soon as it goes, then I'll go buy gold. And I'm like, then you're buying it high,
right?
You idiot. No, you want to sell your gold then. Yeah. Don't buy gold, then sell your gold. Now, what I believe would happen is that as soon as it sells, as soon as it sets, this is when we'll see what's called the U.S. note. And so it'll be, and people will have like 90 days to go change in their note. And there's really a cool thing, and I've talked about this quite a bit. The way to fix all of the stupid stuff that we have in the world is to make people turn in their old currency. By the way, it's happening right now in Iraq. Okay. Iraq is the most unbanked country, or at least one of the highest unbanked countries in the world. And what they're doing is saying, turn in your dollars and get dinar. And so, and because it's already happening. You guys don't think it's happening. You guys think, people say to me all the time, Nesara is just ridiculous. Well, or Nesara is ridiculous. It's happening right now in Iraq because they want it to be flipped to $3.60 something cents. It's happening. So sorry, it's $1,300 or 1,300. Sorry, not $1,300, 1,300. Okay, so you have a more expensive ability to get out of the dollars. And actually, if you keep your dollars, they're going to start fining you by keeping your dollar. Oh. And so what happens is this is how you get away from it. And it's going to cordon off the dollar until it's choked and it's dead. And then what happens is that in America, we see this flip happen, and it'll be around the same time frame that the EBS is going on, and Trump will announce it. Don't worry about Biden. He'll be gone. He'll be in Gitmo or hung at the same time or whatever.
You mean the clone version of Biden?
Yeah, I don't care. Whatever. The actor. I always say it's the actor because you see this little thing or down here, whatever. just like the idiot, Kamala with her little rubbery thing down here, and
Kamala does. That gentleman does have a weird thing on his neck.
Yeah, whatever, idiot. So, what happens is that the like my father-in-law, he's he'll walk into the bank with his, I don't trust the government, and he's nice, but he doesn't trust them. He'll walk in there with the $10,000. He just flips it out, and they give him U.S. note, and they just whatever. But the drug dealer walks in, and what do you do with it? He walks in with his cash. He gets pillaged. How does he have $1 million in cash? Did you know a month and a half ago, Trump said, we know where all of you idiots are. he didn't say that exact words, but he knows where everyone is. Why do you think that we're having a border problem right now?
Well,
And
I mean, go ahead.
we already know where they are.
Yeah.
Did you know that we're giving them cell phones?
Yep.
Why do you think that we're giving them cell phones?
Because we can see where they are. Bingo.
I'm telling you that I don't like it either. I don't think this is exactly how I would do it. Because Scott would have pushed the button a long time ago. Okay. So I'm just telling you, I wouldn't do it this way. But this is the way that you sweep the streets. And it's going to be chaotic, but you sweep the streets of all this stuff. I mean, have you guys seen the series Reacher? It's a Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't yet.
One day, you would have wiped the whole series off by flipping the currency to go back. One day. And it's all Nesara kind of thing. Okay. This is all the movies that they fix all the movies in 5 minutes here with this whole thing. I'm just telling you, this is what gets me excited. And it's the game theory. It's where we are right now. And you guys should be excited. You guys can't be. I know some people are pissed off at me. I have to like delete people off my YouTube channel because they're all mad at me and they call me like false prophet and everything else. And I'm like,
Dream killer.
Dream killer.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I'm like, yeah, dream killer. I should use that one. I'll do that.
Yeah, no, I think new phrase is coined. You're the dream killer.
I'm dream killer. Yeah, because that, you know, and they also go like, well, you're not telling people, you know, that they're going to get millions of dollars and, you know, and they're going to, you know, get their bond money. And I'm like going, come on, stop it. You know, I mean, you're going to have your debts paid off. It's going to flip. There's jobs. There's going to be great things happening. Okay. There's going to be wonderful things happening, but you're not going to be walking around with billions of dollars in your pocket and all this crazy stuff going on. And, you know, you're going to be like, I'm not going to work again. You know, come on. You know, the whole thing about Trump is he's like, I want people to get back to work.
Yeah.
And a level playing field.
Yeah.
A level playing field where I can get ahead and where someone's not pillaging me and stealing my contracts, you know, and taking advantage of me. Mm-hmm. And people say to me all the time, that's just not fair. And I'm like, didn't your mama tell you life isn't fair?
Right.
Yeah, the new world's going to take a lot of work and everyone coming to, I mean, as much as everyone can come together, I suppose, but you know, like we're affiliated with some great people and it's just going to take all of us, whether it's, you know, channels like this helping explain to what's going on to people. I don't know exactly what our role is. And here's we're 145 shows into this. We don't have people calling us up going, you know, you guys are right on track. You're doing a great job. We're just figuring this out as we go. And so, you know, I think that's what we're going to see. Maybe at some point we'll have a little bit more of an understanding of what our specific role is. But hey, I love doing this, figuring out as we go.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I'd love to come down to your shows too. You invite me to come down to your shows. I'll come down and do a show with you guys. But, you know, when you do that, but I mean, I know that's what God's called me to do is I'm going to be teaching this stuff. I mean, because the reality is, and I get this all the time. Like I get my favorite diss is like, what kind of doctor are you? And I'm like going, dude, if the financial geniuses were telling you the stuff, then I wouldn't be doing my thing. I mean, the reality is, you know, the financial gurus who can like run circles around me on some of this area, if they were telling you that the credit system is completely broken. Do you guys know something? I don't know if you saw this. Do you know that in San Francisco right now, there's 2 major hotels are turning the keys into Wells Fargo. Now, I mean, just think about this. When you walk into a hotel, these are like city block things, okay? If they're walking and they're going, yeah, but they're gonna like refinance the hotel. If they had refinancing available, that they were maybe at a favorable rate of like 2 or 3%, and they're going to refi the rate, which the refi rate would be at 7 or 8%. That means you're talking about the difference of like probably about $150,000 more a month, or $150,000 to $250,000 more a month, and they can't pay for it now at the lower rate. Right. You think they can pay for it, at a higher rate? If they can't pay it at the lower rate, they're not going to pay it at the higher rate. And just like I was saying to you before, hotels are doing this, and car dealerships are going out of business. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Everywhere, it's happening everywhere. The number one tax revenue source is car sales.
New or used, or both?
Both. The number one tax revenue is car sales, and the car sales is going through the bottom of the barrel. No one's buying cars because no one has the money to pay the higher amounts, and no one's dropping the prices, and because they can't afford the prices, and no one can afford the rate that it is for the cash of the money. I mean, of the finance rate, and no one can qualify for the loans anymore. I mean, we got so many problems with this. The thing is grinding to a halt, and no one's talking about it.
Well, and you got these manufacturers. They have been without microchips, ostensibly for how long? So they have all these vehicles they've produced that are sitting, waiting on critical components before they can hit the market.
Well, those are coming back. No, that's already been fixed. That's already been fixed. Do you know the dealerships have a glut of vehicles right now? Oh. So that's already fixed. Now they're actually with it, but they can't sell them.
No.
Wow. And
they can't lower the prices, right?
Yeah. So then they're paying insurance rates on this thing, and so they're going out of business. Oh. Wow. And so you're talking about, I mean, I'm telling you, you guys don't realize this thing is way worse than anyone's talking about.
Yeah, you realize it.
And I mean, like this is just simple math. In November, my electricity bill was like $131 a month. Now it's $275. And you guys could do the same math, okay? Gas was 100 and something or whatever, and now it's like 200 or something or other. I mean, you cannot have doubling effects when people they are within 3 weeks of being out. So can you have new home sales? No. So, and guess what also is happening? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm giving you another one. Do you know that what the rich are doing? They're taking their money out of the banks and buying real estate. Why are they doing that? Because they think that's the best way to kind of keep their money.
Sure. It's not.
Oh my God, there's just so many things wrong with that.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend? Obviously, we've talked about possibly gold.
Well, first off, you never go wrong with gold in a down economy.
Right. Or silver.
Or silver or whatever. I mean, precious metals, whatever, I mean, in that way. But here's the thing. If maybe at best, we have 10 to 20% of the world who knows anything about Nesara, I'd say more like 5 or 10% of the people know anything about Nesara. It would be massively evil if the white hats didn't protect it. And I've known since the beginning of studying this Nesara thing that everyone who was not named, Bill Clinton, essentially, is going to be covered in this Nesara thing. Okay. So, and that's actually exactly with the executive orders that I could rattle off the top of my head. And that's why Derek and I do really well with one another, because he and I rattle off executive orders back and forth, with that. But Executive Order 13818 and 13848, those are two executive orders that actually wipe out the elite.
Yep.
And it puts them in bankruptcy.
Yep.
You guys don't understand. It puts them in bankruptcy and then puts them in Gitmo.
Right.
And so what it does is that everyone else, if they haven't had, if they don't have any bankruptcy event in that way, then what they do is that goes, okay, good. Your money is flipped 1-to-1 in the gold-backed currency. So if you have $1,000 in fiat, you have $1,000 in gold. If you have it in your 401k, it's in the gold-backed currency. Okay. Now, if you have it, if it's still in your 401k, now it's still possible that it could go up and down with the economy or with the markets. And I moved every single thing into money market or gold, with that, because I don't want to go up and down. And by the way, as soon as a scare event occurs, guess what happens to your markets? They'll tank.
Right.
So
I didn't even renew my license for loan origination this last year because it was pointless. By the time the market rebounds, we're going to be in an entirely different system. There was just
right.
That's where we're at. Yeah, I work with a realtor friend. Now it's like the writing's on the wall.
Right. I mean, but here's the thing. After this whole thing goes, I mean, the markets are not going to die off. Okay. They're gonna rebound with, after we see the BlackRock and the Vanguards and all those stuff, they're gonna flush out of the system and we're gonna see a rebound. Okay. Because you can't kill off the markets, but you're gonna see a rebound. It's gonna be a slow rebound. Okay. Because you can't lose all the money in there, but it's gonna take a big hit. Maybe a 25 to 50% hit. It's actually already had a 30% hit, but it's going to go down another 25 to 50%. And then once it starts to, it'll start moving up after that. And so it's the reality that it has to go through.
Well, it was my understanding that Trump was loading up all of the toxic assets and all of the liabilities and whatnot onto the Fed balance sheet, and then in turn rolled that over to BlackRock. So, like, they're holding the bag, from what I understand.
And that's possible. I mean, and that's the question mark. Now, I mean, I will say this: I do not know what he did to that. Now, does he set up a mirroring event where that they have a market dip and we don't? I mean, I don't know that. Okay. Or do we have a little bit of a dip, maybe a 15% dip because some of ours dip and then they're just going to penny stocks and then off the market? I don't know that.
How do you handle? I mean, just as a nation, we've got, what is it? 30 was 33. Now it's probably closer to $40 trillion in debt. But the unfunded liabilities are way higher than that. We've got the derivatives market, which is scary as all hell. People don't talk about those things, but
it's very simple. It's very, very simple. Let me tell you how you do it. And Nesara, I mean, Executive Order 13818. Okay, it was put back together in 2017. So and there's a couple different points that you have to realize. Okay, Executive Order 13818 says if you have crimes against humanity. And so we're going to talk about the media, Hollywood, and the government officials. Okay, so we'll just use those three basic points. Okay, and it basically says they can't move any of the money around. And in that same time frame, did you know that all of the bigwigs started to get divorces?
Yep.
Yeah. Bezos.
They started to move their money around. They started to give their money to their wives.
Yep.
They started to sell off. They started to I mean, there's a whole bunch of these, they were getting out of their companies. I mean, there's like all this other weird stuff. Like, I mean, and let me give you a weird one. I mean, I've talked about this one before, but okay, let me give you a strange one. And I'm a business guy who's actually bought out companies. Okay, so Twitter valued at maybe $20 billion. So Elon offers 44 billion, which he should never offer. He doesn't have 44 billion. He leverages several sources, and he way over leverages for sources, and then he outs the sources, and then he still gives them 44 billion after 6 months. And I'm going, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And then after he does it, he fires 80% of the staff. He keeps outing the sources. He kills all of his other things. He tanks the thing. So he makes the stock worth less. I mean, like, if I'm talking about how you would actually make your company worth less, that's exactly what I would do to make it worth less. And I'm going,
A real transaction, was it?
this is the untracked transaction way to do it in the history of the world. And I'm going, and people talk about him as the smartest man in the world. And I'm going, that's the dumbest thing to do. And I tell you what, that's a white hat thing through and through.
Yeah,
I believe
exactly.
that is a utility company through and through.
Yep.
100%.
And I'm telling you guys, that's where I go white hat, white hat, white hat, white hat, white hat.
Yeah,
so what happened is that you're seeing a bankruptcy event in all of these things. This is all bankruptcying these people. So what happens is that the $32 trillion of debt just gets wiped off. So and see what happens, the Fed has always been known is the lender of last resort.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was in a mall with one of the places that I had, right? And there was something that they owed me at the last little bit, and it was only like $700 that they owed me. And I was so far down on the list, and I knew dang well I was never getting a dime from them. And when you realize, you're so far down the list, and I remember seeing my name like 84th on the list, and there's no way I'm getting any money. And some people think that are going to get money when you're on a list of a bankruptcy event. Okay. The reality is that unless you're in the top 5% or whatever, top 10, you're not getting any money. What happened in 2008 is that they took all the toxic debts on. Well, then what they did is they didn't just take the toxic debts; they actually turned them into profit centers, and made lots of money for the 13 bankers. But they did it on a purpose. Now what's happened? Trump actually made them take on the toxic debts of the world, and he's been dropping all the toxic debts from 2020 on. So they have more debts than everything out there. So what happens is the banking systems are throwing all their toxic debts on them, and every toxic debt is out there with them. Mm-hmm. So when it gets washed down the drain, it just flushes down the drain. So when you think that you owe that piece of debt, you don't owe anything. And where does that, do you owe it back? Like, no, the house is under your name. It's over. You go, well, wait a second, don't I have to owe something? No, it's with the Fed. and because there's no one left, you go and people go, well, Silicon Valley Bank, and there's always someone above them. Well, when you get to the Fed, it's the top of the ceiling.
Right.
Well, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do want to share something with some of the guests. If you haven't paid your credit card and you're being approached by the credit card collection companies, this is what I learned from David Straight. you can simply write them a letter. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a financial advisor, and say that there was no privity of contract. They can't legally come after you for a debt that they paid off for pennies on the dollar and then hold you accountable. That's bullshit. Do you have any? And we'll end with this because we're trying to stay at around an hour. Do you have any non-financial advice to
you know, I've told people to do. I mean, and I mean, it's messed with. I've had several of them come back to me and go, "This is brilliant." But let's say you have a $10,000 debt, and this messes with people, and they always want to like write them a check for like $100 a month. You know, let's say you have like minimum payment of $118 a month or whatever. And so what a lot of people do is they don't pick up their phone, and they want to pay the minimum payment. But if you just write them a check for $32.82, you write them and then your next month you write them $28.42, and you go, that's all I can do. And what you've done is you kept them in the systems, and they don't know how to take you off into unpayable debt. It blows them up. And then the next month you pay them like $42.16. And you're going, and when they call you, going, I'm paying you everything I can pay you. And they're like, and I mean, dude, I'm telling you what, you do that kind of stuff with your debtors, you will mess them up because they don't know what to do. You don't pay them a round number. You pay them $42.22. And the next month, do not pay them the same number. Okay. Make it a different number. And when they look at your monthly amount, it's like a different amount. And it's like, you know, and you paid by commission, or, you know, like, or like, you know, you're a waitress or something like that. And you, and you have, you know, my tip jars were worse this month. And what did they say to that?
You almost look like you're going to say Bueller.
I didn't have no idea you were going to be this funny, Scott. I really didn't.
I kid you not. And I have had people go, oh my God. And they call me back and go, they're on the phone, and they're drooling on the phone because the creditor has never heard that one before. And I kid you not, I come up with stuff like that all the time. I mean, and it's because I'm brutal with creditor people. I mean, because I just never let them off on that. But if you will do just little things, man, just to get them, you know, and listen, I mean, and listen, I don't want to, I mean, you know, I don't get sideways with them until this thing goes away. You know, just pay them the little tiny minimum kind of things. I understand we're all in a tough situation, you know, and listen, the whole world is in a credit crunch like nobody's business.
Right.
Yeah. We're all in it, you know. This thing has to get wiped. Now, on the next side of this, on the other side of this thing, we're all going to have to learn to live within our means.
Yeah.
We're going to have to learn to live within our means. We can't just run out there and run up our credit card again, because there's not going to be another debt forgiveness coming.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. You know, creditors have called, and you're like, look, COVID, I've lost, and this isn't a joke. We've lost jobs, we've lost income. You know, it's like unemployment runs out. This isn't a joke. I'm like, COVID destroyed me. How am I supposed to pay back certain things? You know,
and be honest, be straightforward with them, be honest, and you know, I mean, like there's only there, you know, our practice, or our you know, there's 20% less people coming into my restaurant, or whatever that thing. I mean, whatever that circumstance, be honest with them. And what do they say to that?
Well, that's the thing. Every creditor understood. I'm just like, I don't, you know, I mean, I don't mean to be airing my thing, but it's like, this is real. COVID just basically destroyed me. So what did I do? I started a multi-million-dollar podcast. Because this pays extremely well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're like, yeah, baby. And I hear this all the time, and I'm going, yeah, like, you have no idea. I mean, I like, I like pay for my own way on my own, on my own stuff. I mean, and I take no advertising on my stuff because God told me not to.
Yeah.
I just like going, I mean, YouTube pays me a little tiny bit. And I did a music thing on my opening video. Now they want to take like 40% off of for like a video thing on an introduction thing. I was like going,
For
great.
royalties?
For royalties off of my YouTube channel. I was going,
Wondered
oh
about that.
my.
That's our friend Cameron, who we just met last night for the first time. We use his music because I don't want some, you know,
I
clown
know.
saying, "Well, you used our music."
I know, and I've got to go back to my guy and go, can you please do some royalty free stuff or
Yeah.
pay $84 for that guy to, get him off, get him off there or whatever, dang dude. It's just that kind of stuff. They just screw with you all the time. And you guys have no idea, I mean, how much we spend, but I'm praying for people all the time. But the reality is, guys, this is coming.
Right.
And just hold on. I promise you. I mean, if Trump gets off the airplane and he's doing this little dance,
It's a
and
good
he's an
sign.
economist and he knows what's happening, I promise you, it's happening.
Awesome. Well,
Great.
Dr. Scott Young, where can people find you? And yeah, we'll close with that. It's been a joyous occasion actually to have you on the show.
Yeah, my dreams were surprisingly intact. I thought I would.
Well, you got to see it. It's a Dr. Scott. Sorry, drscottyoung.com, and you can actually go on there and download like a 14-page little article that talks about Nesara. So it's free, by the way. I get it all the time. Well, you want a donation there? I'm like, you can do it free. You can just download it for free. You put your email address. Yes, I asked for an email address. So you can kind of get on there, and there's other stuff that you can kind of look at down there as well too.
Right. All right. We'll hang out afterwards. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully you found some enjoyability in this and also some knowledge. So, all right. Take care.